yeah. Well, I'll tell you, man, for a 20-year-old cat, you've never seen such an outdoorsman. No fucking ears either. He had his ears amputated.
Oh, really? Like, so can't hear? Or?
No. He can hear. It's just like the cosmetics of the ears are gone. Like, he looks like a teddy bear now because he has no ears.
Okay.
He's a white cat, and white cats, when they lay in the sun, which a lot of cats like to do, are more. They're more susceptible to skin cancer. So he had some like carcinomas on his ears that were slowly like eating the flesh.
Wow.
You know how like when you burn a match, like it just, eventually there's like nothing to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whatever kind of cancer, squamous cell or whatever it was like slowly eating his ears like a burning match. Only instead of like over the course of a minute, over the course of like, a year, 6 months.
Wow, that sounds awful.
Yeah, so snip, and he's good to go. It's like it never happened.
Okay. Is this a thing?
Our baseball drafts is Sunday.
Yeah, fuck. You're maybe not going to be super pumped about this, but without even realizing it, because, by the way, I actually have two drafts this weekend.
Okay.
I have one Saturday and one Sunday, but I didn't even think about those and plan to go to Niagara Falls with Jamie this weekend. So
you can't make it?
I'm going to try to draft from my phone doing whatever we're doing,
Yeah.
Because it's probably going to be around the time of dinner and shit, and hopefully I'll end up with a like in the 9-10 or 1-2 slot,
Yeah, so it's a ton of time between picks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You could always like pre-rank your picks so that.
Oh yeah. I'm definitely going to do that as well. No doubt.
That way, if it autos, you get someone you're interested in.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. So, is there any scenario? Yeah, I don't know where to get the link for this is my problem. All right.
I'll tell you, Jared Cook signing with the Saints. That's another guy I was surprised he was still available as of today. I love that fit, man. Him and Drew Brees are going to do special things.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus, look what he did last year with fucking Derek Carr.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, he was the best tight end in the league last year. Nobody wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, he kind of turned it on late, though. So, we'll see what happens.
You say he kind of turned it on late?
I thought he did, didn't he? Am I like having
Well, I can give you that, but he also started white hot. I mean, I think his first game was over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Legit might be revisionist history on my part. So
he was like the number one waiver pickup week 1. But I think he also wasn't as hot of a pickup as he could have been, because in years past he's done this, especially in week 1.
Yeah. You see him do something like that, and you're like, we'll see what happens. But you're right. Yeah, week 1, 9 for 180, no touchdowns, but yeah.
He had a couple of weeks in the middle of the season, but that was more just the Raiders being
that's it. Like it's hard to say, because it's like I'm looking at his game log, and it's like, so he had that first game, and then it was like 4 for 49, 5 for 31, 8 for 110, which is great. But then like 4 for 20, 2 for 10, 4 for 74, 2 for 20, 4 for 52, 3 for 31, 2 for 32. So, and then like, I don't know, man. It's hard. Tight end's a really hard position.
Well, I was just going to say, like, those numbers sound pretty pedestrian, but sadly in 2019, in 2018, that was TE1, tight end 1 number.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in a PPR league, receptions, man. No other tight end was getting receptions like that. He was basically their number 1 receiver.
I know. And he did have those 2 games, but like the last 3, it was 2 for 23, 2 for 20, 3 for 28. So like,
word was out he was getting triple teamed.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because God knows they didn't have anything else.
Well, that was just it, right? Yeah. I mean, if you're game planning against the Raiders, it's like, okay, no Marshawn Lynch, no Mari Cooper, no Khalil Mack. Let's just take
once Cooper went out, it's like I'm sure it definitely hurt him.
Yeah. Let's just take Jared Cook out and see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, just 5 seconds, all right?
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, this cat's making my life hard.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, all right, cool. I'm good. So we're going to start with the NL West?
Yeah. Well, we'll see where it goes. I'll start with an apology and try to just go from there.
Okay.
All right, Nick Smart, I got to tell you, last week I think we did what is probably the best show that we've done so far. Just an absolute thing of beauty, lots of good insights, and to a certain extent, really just like Notre Dame's level philosophy happening. And then I, after taking a month off drinking, came home after starting drinking again and tried to clone a hard drive and cloned it the wrong way, and that episode is gone forever. So if you can dig it up and find it on Twitch, I hope you enjoy it. Lots of good NFL insights. But for those of you that have been following along with our previews around the league of Major League Baseball, I'm happy to report last week was all football, and we're coming at you fresh this week, starting in the National League with the NL West. Smart. The Arizona Diamondbacks went full-on sell mode in the offseason. This after last year spending a ton of money and ending up with an 82-80 regular season and being well surpassed by the Colorado Rockies. Did they do the right thing, given the sheer volume of other teams that are tanking too?
That's a good question. Might have to answer that in a year from now. We'll have to see how this season goes.
These kind of shows would be really bad if that's all we ever did, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Arizona's kind of in a middle ground as far as I'm concerned right now. You look at their bats, you look at their infield, their outfield, tells me they're rebuilding. But then you look at this rotation, they still have some pieces in the starting rotation. Makes me wonder, a guy like Zach Greinke, a guy like Robbie Ray, are they going to move?
I mean, I think after you go and move Goldschmidt, you almost have to at this point, don't you? Like,
well, I mean that might as well have been signaling the full-on rebuild that's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, he was your franchise player, he was your best player, and now he's gone.
Big news this week. I gotta tell you, I think this is batshit crazy. And based on the reactions that I'm seeing elsewhere in the media, I'm apparently the only one. But $430 million over 12 years for Mike Trout, unless you just think there is some extremely long-term value to having what might be one of the top 5 players to ever play the game, which also might be an extreme position, because I've seen a lot of that this week, and it seems I just think it's a bit early for that. I don't see how this is particularly bright. Like, is it just me, or did the Angels not learn their lesson from Albert Pujols?
Well, I mean, Pujols, C.J. Wilson, Josh Hamilton, the list is a very long one when you're talking about Artie Moreno liberally throwing around money. At the end of the day, I'm surprised Trout re-signed. The tea leaves I was reading told me he wanted out of town. He was sick of losing. He didn't think they could compete. obviously he feels going forward that they're going to have a decent chance. I'm sure Artie Moreno's pulled him aside and assured him that he's going to continue to spend money until they do win.
I believe that. I also think that is just going to be a horrible ring around their neck at some point. When you are looking at that much money for a player, $36 million, and unless you just think like inflation is going to go through the roof over the next 10 years, which it sure doesn't seem to be right now. I think the best evidence against this deal is looking at the deals that Miguel Cabrera signed and Albert Pujols signed. Because those players in their prime, everybody argued for being the best hitter of all time. There was very little pushback at the idea that either one of those players could be the best hitter that we've ever seen in our lifetime. And now we've got the same arguments being made for Mike Trout, as if he's not going to, fall off once he hits 30, just like everybody else has. And by the way, a lot of his skill set actually ages less well than the two previously named players. Speed does not age particularly well. Defense does not age particularly well. So, he has a really good eye, and he's a very good hitter, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't hit with the same level of power as either of those guys. This could just end up being an absolute albatross.
It very well could. One problem the Angels are going to have that we know of now is in 2021, between three players, Trout, Pujols, and Justin Upton, they're going to be paying $89 million to those three players. According to our buddy Chris, that's more than the Rays, White Sox, or Athletics paid their entire roster in 2018.
Yeah.
So that could be a major problem, especially when you factor in that in 2021, as things kind of stand now, I don't anticipate the Angels being really any good.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see how some of these reclamation projects work out in the rotation. We went over that when we did the AL West show, but I mean, it seems like it's going to be an iteration of this roster only a couple years down the road.
Yeah, it's really really frustrating. And so if this is like, if you're spending this money in part for marketing, that makes a certain amount of sense. But
trying to keep up with the Dodgers in that LA market, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, keeping up with the Dodgers and just the prestige that comes along with a Hall of Famer, and the reputation that he gets, right? Like that's really the move here. So yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know. I'm just for anybody watching the stream right now, like I'm taking a look at some of these stats, just doing a nice comparison to Cabrera and Pujols, right? Trout has better OBP. Cabrera had a down year. I think the part about Trout that is probably appealing is that his numbers seem to more or less steadily increase. There's a good argument to be made that he hasn't hit his ceiling yet. But yeah, it's really tight. He has a higher K percentage than any of these guys. God, Albert Pujols, we forget how good he was, eh? That guy just didn't strike out. It's like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely two tails to one career.
Yeah. Even now, he doesn't strike out. Go ahead.
Big time.
Here's a question for you. Is there a more average to mediocre player in the majors than Justin Upton? I mean, talk about name value and getting paid, right? I mean, has this guy really ever done anything? He's on what, his sixth team now, or fifth team at least?
You know, the guy
for a former number one overall pick. I mean, I feel like his career's been kind of a disappointment in a way.
Yeah, the one guy to actually kind of compare with him is Jason Hayward. You know, I feel like it's the same kind of deal where like we expected a lot out of those guys.
Yep.
And then they've been good players. They've been you know, consistently good players, but it's not great. Melvin Upton still out of the league now for a while. Remember when we thought he was going to be a thing?
Yeah. Melvin, formerly BJ Upton.
Exactly. Yeah.
Melvin, don't call me BJ Upton.
I'm trying to find.
Yeah, no, I mean, to spin back to that AL West show we did, I don't anticipate the Angels being any good this year.
No, I have a hard
really
time.
don't.
Yeah, and long term, I don't think it's going to happen either, right? So
no. I think Matt Harvey would have been better served to stay in Cincinnati, believe it or not, where he showed some success late last year. I think Matt Harvey could have a rough season with the Angels.
Yeah, who knows?
And
we'll see.
I also think it could be in his only season.
Yeah, like this could be Matt Harvey's last season. That's absolutely on the table here.
Yeah, it certainly could be, but I certainly don't anticipate him being back with the Angels next year, just based on how poorly I expect him to perform this year.
All right, let's start with some NL West stuff. We'll come back if there's other news later on. Also, just for people listening, I'm a little under the weather, so I'm sorry if my voice is sounding a little off and weird today. Arizona Diamondbacks reports coming from The Athletic today saying Goldschmidt is nearing a 5-year extension with the Cardinals worth around $130 million. Okay. So doing the math off the top of my head, that's about $26 million a year, or exactly $26 million a year. Gotta tell you, like,
I mean, if you're gonna give up the guys to trade for him, you got to pay for him, right?
I guess, but it does make me question some things, because this is definitely some old school thinking. If they're thinking that paying somebody going into their 36th year, $26 million is a good investment. I think that could be entirely problematic.
Out of the 4 major North American leagues, out of all those teams, I have a hard time finding a team I trust more, a franchise I trust more.
That's a very good point, yeah.
Than the St. Louis Cardinals. The way they've managed their pitching staff in particular over the past 20 years, to me, has been amazing. Their scouting is always great. If they feel like that was a contract they had to make for Goldie, then I fully trust them. Now, if this was, say, the Oakland Raiders, I might have some questions, but St. Louis Cardinals, I think, are a class organization, and I'm going to trust them until they give me reason not to.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the Arizona depth chart right now.
When we did the AL East show, I kept saying, how come nobody signed Adam Jones yet? Well, in between that show and this show, the Diamondbacks have stepped up and gave Adam Jones a 1-year deal. I really like that. I thought he would have been. I thought he was meeting a cold market for no reason, given his past track record. I still think he has some gas left in the tank. I like the sign.
Yeah, that's weird. This roster resource site, it doesn't have him on the Diamondbacks yet.
Now, with this team going nowhere fast this season, I'm not sure I expect Adam Jones to finish the year on the Diamondbacks. Very well could be a deadline deal to a contender.
Oh, there he is. They're showing him as a bench player. Interesting. They don't think he'll start.
As things stand now, I don't think he's going to start because you've got Steven Souza in right field, who theoretically still has some upside, I guess.
Yeah, that's theoretically is an important distinction there.
They've got a former second base shortstop of theirs, Ketel Marte, penciled in to start in center field. I believe this is his first year in the outfield, and they've got a
young kid too.
Yeah. And they've got mainstay David Peralta in left field. The thing about Marte is we did our Yahoo rotisserie draft last week, and Marte is in Yahoo, I assume in ESPN as well, but Marte is eligible at second base and shortstop in Yahoo, so where he's going to be playing center field, jump on that.
Yeah, I a lot of these leagues have changed. Like, let me rephrase that. Position scarcity, I feel like, is actually quite different at shortstop right now. There used to be a time when there were maybe like 2 or 3 shortstops you felt comfortable with. I think increasingly we're at a place where you could roster up to 10 to 12 starting shortstops pretty comfortably right now.
For me, it's the second base position that still lacks.
That's
depth.
True. Second base used to actually be just an absolute boon of hitters, because you don't necessarily need to be that good a defensive player to play second base. You just got to be able to hit. And there's not a ton of those guys right now.
They say as the years go on, the way the sport is shifting, you're seeing more hitters play second base and defense start to become less of a priority at the position.
Yeah, it's definitely, if you're going to play middle infield and your specialty is defense, you are leaning heavily into shortstop generally. But that's not breaking news. Man, I got to tell you, I'm looking at this lineup. I am having a hard time finding much to get excited about here.
Yeah, no, the bats leave a lot to be desired. I expect them to be one of the softest hitting teams in the league. But I tell you, they do have some strengths in the rotation. And that back end of the bullpen between a former top pitching prospect in the sport, Archie Bradley, Yoshihisa Hirano, setting up former All-Star Greg Holland. I like that back end of the bullpen. I really do. And they certainly have, 3-4 starting pitchers that can get the job done, even with Taijuan Walker on the DL recovering from Tommy John.
Yeah. I feel like we've been waiting for Jake Lamb to have a breakthrough for literally his entire career.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, he's going to be replacing Goldie at first base this season. He's moving over from third base.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's going to pan out. I think that's a tough spot for him.
I'll tell you, speaking of the Goldie trade, 2 guys that came over from St. Louis, pitcher Luke Weaver and prospect catcher Carson Kelly, who was blocked, of course, by Yadier Molina for so many years with the Cardinals. They will be the 2 top storylines for me, especially from a fantasy perspective, watching this Diamondbacks team. I'll tell you, there were times last season, the past 2 seasons, that Luke Weaver was pitching like a top 3 starter, and then of course there were times where he was pitching like a minor leaguer. So it'll be interesting to see what Luke Weaver will stand up for Arizona.
Yeah, and going back to what you said earlier, I think Luke Weaver, if Luke Weaver had that kind of success in St. Louis, I'm not totally confident that he replicates it in Arizona. I think the humidor maybe helps. But aside from that, I don't like the organizational change there.
You gotta wonder. I mentioned Greinke and Robbie Ray earlier, but even a guy like Zach Godley, I mean, what's the future for those 3, you could argue, veteran starting pitchers on this Arizona team going nowhere fast? Now, with Greinke, I think it's mainly his contract that prevents them from being able to move him. But a guy like Robbie Ray or Zach Godley, you have to think, a contending team like the Yankees or even the Red Sox are going to be after these guys leading up to the deadline.
Yeah, that Greinke contract is a nightmare. just an absolute nightmare. We're talking about $35 million a year for the next 3 years, going into his 37th year. That's just
for a guy with an incredible amount of innings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, workhorse,
and they say,
like, you know, good form. He's always coming out and pitching 200, but like, I'm not sure you want the last 3 years of that body.
Yeah. And there were reports out of Arizona that say the velocity on his fastball is ticking off by the hour.
Yeah. Yeah, I could absolutely believe that.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Robbie Ray will be wearing an LA Dodgers cap to finish the season.
I think that's definitely a limb. I mean, I'm gonna check the contract status because that's gonna have a lot to do with it. But like, I think Robbie Ray or Zach Godley. I don't know. I feel like the Dodgers are going to be buying starting pitching going into the deadline. I think those are two strong candidates. Yeah, he's got another year of arbitration left, though. So, I mean, arguably you could get more now for him than you could.
Well, that's just it, right? Sell high, right? If you're Arizona, by the time you're ready to theoretically contend again, Robbie Ray's going to be past his prime. Might as well move him.
Yeah, you need, unless you plan on re-signing him, right? Because, you know, if you can get him on a not stupid deal, if you can do, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but like 6 years, 112 or something like that, where you're basically buying an arb year and then trying to give him market value for the next 5. Maybe he signs a deal like that and protects himself from injury and other variables. But it's a difficult situation. I think you don't want to let Robbie Ray walk. He's definitely shown some good things. But let's not forget, like, he's not the most healthy person, let's say.
And he relies a lot on the strikeout. High strikeout pitchers don't always remain that way, stretching on into the latter years of their career.
That's true. We would have said the same about just trying to be fair, because I think that's a really good point, and I would generally support it. Let's not forget about outliers like Justin Verlander, who 2 years ago we would have left for dead.
I can't give Verlander enough credit for turning his career around. A lot of guys, when they start to lose their velocity, just can't do it. But I think guys like Verlander, and even to a lesser extent, maybe Adam Wainwright, are models for former workhorse starting pitchers who used to just power through.
Yeah.
You have to wonder if a guy like maybe Max Scherzer, maybe in 2, 3, 4 years from now is going to have to change his approach once that velocity starts to tick off.
Yeah, but Scherzer's been doing it for a while now.
No, that's why I said 4 or 5 years, because Scherzer has shown no sign, zero signs of any form of regression. If anything, he's better than he was when he was with Detroit.
Absolutely. 34 years old now. From 2010 to 2018, the fewest number of innings that he pitched in a year was 187. Given the modern Major League Baseball, that's an amazing number.
Do you think if the Tigers could have a mulligan on that one, they would give Scherzer Verlander's contract instead of paying Verlander at the time? I don't think the Tigers really knew what they had in Max Scherzer until it was too late, and the money wasn't there to keep him.
Yeah. Listen, I think that's a really good point. I'm just looking at the Verlander deal now. I mean, Verlander's still on that deal. And
I'll tell you, R.I.P. Mark Ilitch, or sorry, I forgot his first name, but Ilitch, the owner in Detroit that passed away. Before he passed, man, he handed out some money. Miguel,
really
Verlander,
pushed the chips in there. Yeah,
David Price trade. I mean, Ian Kinsler, you name it. Prince Fielder.
Yeah. So, I mean, looking at this, realistically, the deal was probably a good deal, right? Like, if they could have got out of Verlander what Houston managed to, and in fairness to Verlander, he kind of started turning it around before that year he was dealt, like in the year he was dealt to Houston.
He did. There was a reason Houston wanted him.
Yeah. So I don't think it was a bad deal. I think it's a really good value. A pitcher pitching the way Verlander is pitching at 28 a year, you know, Greinke's making 35, 36. Like, this is great.
Yeah. I mean, let's not beat around the bush either. If the Tigers had given Scherzer that contract at the time, Scherzer still wouldn't be a Tiger right now, right? I mean, it didn't matter who Detroit was paying. At this point in time where we stand today, they would have been all gone like they all are.
Yeah, but you know, you wonder, because like baseball's a funny sport sometimes. You take a couple losses and turn those into wins, and maybe this team was actually just a powerhouse for all that time if they kept all those dudes. You know, who knows?
I'll tell you, in the early 2010s, when they were, you know, really in that championship window, what a team they were. I mean, nobody in baseball wanted to play them in playoffs. Yeah. Nobody.
Unbelievable. The fact that they didn't get a ring out of that was actually quite a shock.
Real shame.
Yeah. Small, you know, not particularly relevant point I'll make is that one of the first things that happened in my simulation baseball game that I've been playing is that the Arizona Diamondbacks put Gerard Dyson on waivers.
Did they?
Yeah, and I was like, I'll take him. Because the first thing I did in my simulation baseball game was trade Kevin Pillar. So that all worked out for me.
A responsible move.
Exactly. Let's move on from the Diamondbacks to a team that might actually be good this year, the Colorado Rockies. Is it safe to say a surprising result last year?
Yeah, I think they certainly overachieved. I think helping them do that was the breakout performances of some of the guys in the starting rotation, in particular German Marquez. This guy might be the best pitcher in the majors that isn't exactly a household name yet. I mean, outside of the Colorado market and fantasy baseball nerds, I'm just not sure too many people know about this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I am a moderate fantasy baseball nerd, and I don't really know about this guy.
Oh my God, it was nothing but double-digit strikeouts last year.
Yeah.
Whether it was 10, 11, 12, the guy was, I mean, I feel like any other year he would have been a Cy Young favorite.
Yeah. I mean, the starting lineup for this team is just a murderer's row. You know, that the top four players there, and I get that I have an irrational Daniel Murphy love, but like going Blackman, Arenado, Murphy's story,
yeah,
that's a big yikes, you know.
Yeah.
According to this site's MLB hitter power ranking in 2018, those rankings go 17, 9, 196. Murphy was injured most of the year. 11. So that's a scary starting lineup.
Especially in that ballpark at elevation.
Exactly, yeah.
I'll tell you, I love the Daniel Murphy edition. I mean, look what he's done with the Mets. Look what he's done with the Nationals. I know he was with the Cubs there to finish last season, but I think the way he hits in this ballpark, I think it could be one of the more underrated moves of the offseason.
Yeah, for fantasy purposes, usually ends up with multi-positional eligibility, which is always very useful.
Yep, because, I mean, he's been a career second baseman, and it looks like the Rockies are going to be playing him at first base.
Yeah.
So, I would assume he might carry over that old eligibility from seasons past.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll actually take a look right now.
With this team, though, it begins and ends with one Nolan Aaron. Outside of Mike Trout and Mookie Betts, I think Arenado's the third best player in baseball.
I think that's widely agreed upon, honestly.
I mean, the ballpark is a factor, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a better hitter.
Yeah, it's fair.
This guy could hit 60 home runs this season. It wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah.
Trevor Story is an interesting case.
Talk to me about Story for a minute.
You kind of wonder, like, will the real Trevor Story please stand up? He had that white hot rookie season, and then he scuffled a bit his sophomore year. Someone maybe labeled it a sophomore slump, and then he was back to business last year. Maybe not as good as his rookie season, but definitely an all-star season from him last year. Mm-hmm. Question is, what are we going to get out of him this year? They've got some top prospects at shortstop that he's blocking right now. So I start to wonder about his long-term future with this team. I mean, it's going to depend on how he hits. You have to wonder, what's it going to be? Are the strikeouts going to crop back up? Is he going to keep hitting for that kind of power? Can he keep the average up? I'm a fan. I like the way he hits. He's definitely valuable in fantasy, head to head in particular. All those home runs. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a big storyline for this team. Which version of Trevor Story they're going to get?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, looking at this outfield, guys like David Dahl and Raimel Tapia need as many at-bats as they can handle this summer. All David Dahl does is hit whenever he gets in an at-bat, it seems, but there's always been a glut of outfielders that have been blocking him getting regular at-bats in Colorado. I hope that's not the case this summer.
Yeah. I also really like the bullpen that they have here. I feel like, and you know, it's hard to actually do this, but I feel like Wade Davis has always been a little underrated. Yep. You know, we talk about guys like Kimbrel and oh my gosh, what happened to my brain there? The guy in New York.
Aroldis Chapman.
Yes, thank you. You know, those are obviously number 1 and 2, but like when you start to talk about number 3, I think Wade Davis is right there.
He's definitely up there. Was great with the Royals, good with the Cubs.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're a closer, this isn't the best ballpark, but
it's, you know, it's not like for saves and for fantasy purposes, then maybe Wade Davis isn't your guy. But as far as like just straight baseball goes, I think if you're in a big hitter's park, like the thing you need more than anything else is pitching, you know, and especially swing and miss potential. So, yeah, I mean, Davis is, you know, really good for this. And then, you know, we talk about guys like Sungwon Oh, who had a very nice bounce back season last year.
Yeah, I loved that addition by the Jays this time last year. Another former Cardinals pitcher. Yeah, no, I love him as a setup man in Colorado. I think that's a good back end of that bullpen.
Yeah.
It's interesting, as far as starting pitchers go, the Roto-World depth chart that I'm currently looking at has John Gray listed as their 4th starter. I'll tell you, if that is the case this season, that John Gray is their 4th starter, then they're in a pretty good spot. Because we're talking about a guy, former number 1 overall pick, top prospect at his position. They certainly are hoping that he's a number 1 or a number 2 guy still going forward. So
yeah,
I don't know if them having him listed as 4th is just kind of a schedule thing, trying to split up your lefties and righties, but we'll see what John Gray's season entails.
Yeah, roster resources showing him as 3rd, actually. Yeah. Which I would think was splitting up lefties, righties, because then that means you go right, left, right, left, right.
Yeah, because you got to think John Gray surely is a better pitcher than, say, Kyle Freeland or Tyler Anderson.
Yeah, I would think so as well. Freeland, though, like young guy, so you know they probably have high hopes there.
both have been great in spots. It's just I'm just not sure they have the same pedigree as John Gray, and I think it's still too early to write off John Gray being that dominant frontline starter that he was drafted to be.
Yeah,
it might not happen in Colorado. It might take a change of scenery. But,
he looked really good on the front half last year, though. So
yeah. I mean, this is a guy that can strike out 10 guys in 5 innings.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year, the Los Angeles Dodgers went to the World Series for what I believe was the second consecutive year. Are they going again this year?
That's a good question. I certainly think they have the talent to do so. I also think this roster is just rippled with potential storylines. Going to be one of the more fun teams to watch and monitor throughout the summer, I think. Yeah, I think this is a good ball club. I think they easily win this division.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I really sincerely love some of the moves they made in the offseason there. The AJ Pollock pickup was really, really smart in my mind. I've always loved Pollock, and if he ever has a year that's healthy, that'll be something nice for him.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we shall see how healthy he is.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the only problem with him in Arizona.
Yeah, and we've got Justin Turner coming back. I know he came back last year, and people. I don't know what it is about him. I guess the rest of us in the world hate gingers, but he's always been really good. And even in like fantasy circles, I guess you worry about like injury, and injury concerns for sure. But I'll tell you, when I'm doing the 2 drafts this weekend, I'm sure as hell targeting him in a few of them.
Yeah, Justin Turner is what I like to call a professional hitter.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, he's born to do it. He specializes at something a lot of guys struggle with. And yeah, again with Turner, the question with him, especially coming off last season, is health. Can he stay in the lineup? I expect manager Craig Roberts to manage his at-bats and try to keep him healthy for October.
Mm-hmm.
The major storyline here with the Dodgers, especially considering their infield, is they did lose Manny Machado, but they're getting back Corey Seager. Corey Seager is a guy that basically didn't play baseball for them last summer between his Tommy John and I believe he had a hip procedure too while he was recovering from the Tommy John.
Mm-hmm.
The question right now, as it stands with Seager, in fact, both Seager brothers are on the DL right now. Kyle in Seattle having a rough time. But the question with Corey in particular is how many games is he going to play this season? How healthy is he right now? There's mixed reports on whether he's going to be ready for opening day or not. My guess is they're going to take it pretty easy with him, especially in the early going. So if Corey Seager can bounce back to that career trajectory that he was on, the Dodgers are going to be laughing.
Yeah.
Talk about a lot less drama in this clubhouse, though. You get rid of Matt Kemp, Yasiel Puig, and Manny Machado.
Mm-hmm.
You want to bet they're going to be a little more chill in this clubhouse this year?
Yeah, God. I don't even know. I mean, that Puig deal was very surprising to me, to be honest.
It was. Now, I fully expect he'll just be a 1-year rental. I think he's going to have a hell of a contract here in Cincinnati, and he's going to price himself out of the Reds' pocketbook. I don't see Yasiel Puig back with the Reds next year just based on financials.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was basically a salary dump. They got overpaid Reds pitcher back. What's his name there? Pitched a no there a couple years ago. Homer Bailey. Bailey. And they immediately DFA'd Homer Bailey because he's now with someone else. I believe he's a Kansas City Royal now.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Yeah, so basically it was a flat-out money dump. The Dodgers don't have anything to show for it. Except peace of mind.
Can I just talk for a minute about Cody Bellinger?
Yeah, of course.
Because I have, for some time, for some time, since 2017, more or less called this guy a fraud. Because I don't think you can strike out 26% of the time and be successful in this league, especially when you're only walking around 11% of the time. For those of you curious, that turns out to an on base of around 350. Last year was 340.
He got exposed last season. There's no two ways around it.
Yeah. But with that said, we're talking about a guy who played all 162 games last year. Still hit 25 home runs, 76 RBIs, but I will take to the grave that RBIs are a fraudulent stat.
He made some game-saving and game-winning defensive plays in the playoffs.
Yeah, just really a bit of a joy to watch on defense.
For a guy who never really played outfield, some of those diving grabs are amazing.
Yeah. But, we're talking about a guy here who's still got an OPS over 800. And so I think a lot of people feel like he lost value because, the year before he hit 39 home runs in 548 plate appearances, and then he drops to 25 over 632. So people feel like he's regressing. That's a pretty normal sophomore slump. I might even write a blog post about this. That's like my semi-annual blog post about the sophomore slump being very fucking real.
Of course. We just got talking about Trevor Story. He lived it.
Yeah. So, that third year is actually usually the one where things tick up a little bit. And I'd keep an eye out for this guy really having a big year here.
So you think he's a good buy low bounce back candidate in fantasy drafts? Because I'll tell you, last season I drafted him way too high.
Yeah, listen, I think people are going to overvalue the fall here, right? Now I want to see his ADP because I'm like, maybe everybody thinks he's having a bounce back. Who knows?
The thing with Bellinger to me is that rookie season that he had such a great year. If you remember, we just got done talking about how the Dodgers have been in the last two World Series. Well, I remember him being badly exposed by the breaking ball during the last little run of that first World Series run, and I feel like that carried over into this past season where word was out on Cody Bellinger and everyone's playbook said throw him the breaking ball.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully he can change his swing, fix his swing so that that's not a problem for him this year.
Interesting. So of first baseman, he's being taken 6th overall on average.
I think the Dodgers are going to be playing him in right field this year.
That's interesting. I wonder.
Yeah, well, it's looking like another guy who I think is a great storyline. Can he replicate what he did last year during his breakout year? One Max Muncy is going to be playing first base.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, right now he has first base, center field eligibility. Okay, so let me run this by you for a second here, okay? We haven't played a this or that game yet, so we'll start here. Because there's a couple guys here that I think I would rather have Cody Bellinger than. So, would you rather have Cody Bellinger or Rhys Hoskins?
Sorry, Cody Bellinger or who?
Rhys Hoskins.
Oh, for the Phillies?
Yeah.
That's interesting because with that added protection, all of a sudden to this Phillies batting lineup, Real Malto from the Marlins, Harper, of course. I think Hoskins is in for a bounce back year, but long term, give me Bellinger.
Okay, I'm talking just this year.
Okay, yeah, for this year in particular, I think I gotta go Hoskins just based on his added lineup protection.
Would you rather Rizzo or Bellinger?
I got to go Rizzo.
Okay, and Whitmer.
Rizzo's the more established, polished hitter at this stage in his career.
Okay. How about Whit Merrifield? I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Whit Merrifield.
I got to go Bellinger. I think last season Merrifield winning the AL crown was a bit of a fluke.
Yeah, Merrifield actually, of those names I listed, is the highest ADP right now.
I fully believe it because I mean coming back to that whole position, second base, right?
That part is actually super useful. Merrifield, according to the website I'm looking at, which is fantasypros.com, first base, second base, center field, right field, DH eligible. So that's that flexibility is actually really, really nice if you're interested in that. Okay, let's go the other way. Would you rather have Bellinger or JT Realmuto?
That's a tough one. Again, based on the center eligibility, just based on bat skills, give me Bellinger.
Okay, and let's do 2 more. Okay, Bellinger or Joey Votto?
Whew. Guys at completely opposite ends of their career. I think for this season, give me Votto, but every other season moving forward, give me Bellinger.
So I think in our league, which is more or less an OBP league, like the way we score walks and everything, I would definitely 100% take Votto in that situation.
Oh my God!
I don't think Bellinger's walking enough there.
No, and Bellinger's going to strike out a ton more than Votto.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're looking at just like a classic roto league, I would definitely take Bellinger in that spot if we're looking at like batting average and shit.
Okay. The more I think about this season, give me JT Realmuto.
Yeah, that's like
I love
get it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I love that added protection for everybody in that Phillies batting lineup.
Yeah, I absolutely get all that, but I think of all the names we listed, I mean, there in a lot of leagues, I would take Bellinger over all those guys.
Certainly, if it's a keeper league.
Okay. Anything? Actually, go ahead. Yeah.
Couple loose ends in this Dodgers starting rotation that I'd like to get to. First and foremost, does anybody have any clue what's going on with Clayton Kershaw right now? It looks like this guy is breaking down in real time before our eyes. Is it a case that they've pitched him too hard for too long? Has he logged too many innings? How many bullets does this guy have left? Because as it stands now, he's not going to be ready. It looks like he's going to start the year on the, I want to say DL, but I have to say IL. What's the deal with Kershaw? Do you think he's just going to be a multiple IL guy now every season? Do you think he's going to be able to sustain health ever again?
Yeah. The evidence says no. That's the simplistic way to put it, that you can't expect guys to pitch at the level that Clayton Kershaw pitched up to being in their 30s. And that's increasingly, this is a thing that we're seeing across all sports, that the prime for people to perform in athletic endeavors, this is, baseball, hockey, football, fucking random girls in the bar, is like 25 to 30. That's where you're going to get most of your work done. I almost clicked on Clayton Richard on Fangraphs. I would have got very different statistics.
Oh my God. If he even lasts 2 weeks in the Jays rotation, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, I understand. Clayton Kershaw has almost 2,100 innings on his arm.
And he's a skinny dude. People forget that.
He's not a huge guy. And you look at that what I think is safe to say, the peak of the Clayton Kershaw era of 2010 to 2015. And this is a dude that threw 204, 233, 227, 236, 198, 232. Those are inning totals that don't usually let you pitch until you're 40. So to answer your question, I think we might be watching the end.
I know Justin Verlander didn't have the DL stints and really the arm troubles that Kershaw is currently going through, but I feel like Kershaw's kind of at the stage that the aforementioned Verlander and Wainwright reached when they started losing a couple ticks off their fastball velocity. I think Kershaw needs to go back to the drawing board and really study Verlander's late career, resurgence and say, okay, well, I'm going to have to start, picking the corners a little more and being more of a finesse guy and focus more on my control rather than just trying to blow it past guys. I really, really think Kershaw has to study Verlander.
Yeah, that's fair. The thing I'll say, and folks who listen to some earlier episodes of this are aware of my gushing. The amount that I love Roy Halladay is unhealthy, and
R.I.P.
Yeah, absolutely. Press F. Halladay pitched 266. It was his highest total, and then a 239. But those were both when he was relatively young, I guess. Oh no, he's got a 250 for the Phillies. But he had to retire at 33?
His back and his shoulder were giving out.
Yeah, because if you just rip at your body for that long at that level, it's just not sustainable.
Doctors have proven that having a human throw a baseball is an unnatural motion.
Yes. Yeah.
So every single one of these guys that ever takes a mound in the majors has a number of bullets that might as well be written on his forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys expend their bullets early. Some guys have more bullets than others.
Mm-hmm.
The question is how many bullets does Kershaw have left?
Yeah, and it might not be that many.
No, my guess is that it's not based on, the recent injury history. Again, he's got to go. Him and Madison Bumgarner both need to take a page out of Verlander's books as far as how to extend the back ends of their career.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing with the Dodgers is they're sitting pretty good here because they have the in-house Clayton Kershaw replacement in Walker Buehler right behind them. So they've set themselves up pretty good.
I'm very curious on your Walker Buehler thoughts because it seems like in the fantasy community there is either folks that are like, this is the second coming of Jesus, and there's other people that are like, this is the most obvious bust candidate this year. So where do you sit on that?
I think to label him the most obvious bust candidate this year is one of the most reckless things I've heard. The kid's a bona fide stud in my books. He's got every pitch he's ever going to need. He's got the body for it. He's got the pedigree. He's the next coming of Kershaw for the Dodgers as far as I'm concerned. Plenty of storylines. Sorry?
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying plenty of storylines remaining in this Dodgers rotation, but I'll let you finish up on Buehler if you want.
No, I had nothing to add on Buehler.
Okay.
I agree with you on the storylines, though. We're looking at looking at Ryu being your number one right now, apparently, which seems batshit crazy to me. But then you're going Rich Hill, Kenta Maeda, who are both 39 years old, and you're a contender? What the hell is happening on this team?
Well, I think in a perfect world, with Kershaw healthy, Ryu is third or fourth guy.
Yeah.
The one thing before we get to the two Asian pitchers is Rich Hill. for me, Rich Hill's 2019 season will make up of what I like to call the Rich Hill blister watch.
Very similar to Aaron Sanchez.
Yeah. This is a guy, Rich Hill, who, when he doesn't have blister issues, he's great. But not so much last year. But the problem the 2 seasons before it was the guy couldn't shake these blisters.
Yeah. Can I just talk about that for 1 second?
Yeah, for sure.
Rich Hill and Aaron Sanchez seem very similar to me in that regard. I think Sanchez has a better fastball, but let's not get too in the weeds on this. In that they both just have crazy curveballs. Their curveballs are insane. And so you can look like a really dominant pitcher if you just come out and bang curveballs out there over and over again. But by the way, if you're putting that much spin on your curveball, you're giving yourself a blister.
Yeah, so, a lot of torque and a lot of friction.
Yeah, so just like you were talking about number of bullets in a gun for a pitcher, I think that's Rich Hill and Aaron Sanchez. Their most effective pitch is the curveball. They are less effective pitchers if they're not using those curveballs. But they got a shelf life. You're not. There's got to be a limit on the number of those you're going to throw, or else you're on the DL with a blister.
Yeah, I certainly don't think you're wrong. Yeah. There's also been some speculation, not so much that I've heard around Rich Hill's incidents, but specifically connected to Aaron Sanchez. People are starting to wonder if kind of the new synthetic material they use for the baseballs has contributed to this blister epidemic. Yeah,
Stroman complained about that as well last year.
Did he?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting to me because this is one of those things, and it's not just. I mean, I live in Toronto, so I hear more Jays news, but I also listen a reasonable amount to the CBS Fantasy podcast, and around the same time they were talking about it a lot. In that. There were a lot of pitchers on a lot of teams saying that there were clearly issues with the ball, that the ball was not the same baseball they were used to throwing. And Major League Baseball was claiming that they made no changes, that this is the exact same baseball they've played with for the last 30 years. A quick note on that, man, that's the weirdest thing, isn't it? Is it just me? But shouldn't it just be public knowledge about how they make baseballs, and you can just test a baseball and you're of course this meets this standard or doesn't meet the standard. The fact that everybody's so sketchy about the materials and the string and what's being used, it's very odd.
Yeah, no, you don't hear about that. You don't hear about that with quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. No one in the NHL is I think this puck is a different kind of rubber, right?
Yeah. You did hear it for a little bit in the NBA when they tried out that new ball, but that didn't last very long.
Yeah, but at least then they just admitted, they were yeah, we are trying a new ball. Yeah. We will see how it goes, right? The fact
transparency.
Exactly.
Yeah,
just one last note on the blisters that I thought of afterwards, and then I'll turn it over to you for the rest of the stories on the Dodgers. I gotta tell you, those of you that don't like baseball, this is your shittiest argument. When you're oh, it's a sport where somebody with a blister can't play. Oh, you got a blister, that's an injury. Yeah, man.
You try ripping your hand open and see how you feel.
Yeah, and so for one, if you haven't had a blister before in your life, it's not fun. But no. Two, dude, it's literally their job to throw a ball 100 miles an hour over a thing that's 16 inches wide. A blister is going to impact this. What is wrong with you?
It's the exact same way they specifically market specific hand cream to mechanics who their hands dry out and crack, and then they can't work because they make a living with their hands. It's the exact same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. You wanted to talk a bit more about the Dodgers before we moved on?
Yeah, I just wanted to finish up on their 2 Asian starters, South Korean Heejun Ryu and Japanese guy Kenta Maeda. With Ryu, it's been a tale of highs and lows with him in a Dodgers uniform. They paid him an awful lot of money from the get-go. He looked like he was going to be a number 2 starter for them at worst. And then he had about 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years in a row of shoulder issues, knee issues, elbow issues, you name it, he had it. Not to mention the guy's carrying a lot of weight, so he's fat. There's no beat around the bush. He's a fat guy, but he can throw a baseball. So there's many examples of fat guys who can throw baseballs who have jobs.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the most obvious example, rather, is the greatest baseball player to ever play the game, Bartolo Colon.
Yeah. Bartolo Colon, CC Sabathia, David Wells.
Yeah, I just checked. It looks like Colon does not have a contract right now, which is...
Yeah, he was looking for a minor league deal. I still expect he'll get it.
I think he's going to end up on a major league roster at some point once the injuries kick in.
I promise you, he will. Absolutely.
If you're that fat and 45 years old, you probably don't want to do spring training.
No. And he's literally the definition of an innings eater.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
In every sense of the word.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just to finish up with Ryu, he finally came back last season and he pitched great. Pitched to an all-star form. Was great in the playoffs. The main question with him is, can he sustain the health? Because if he can, he's always been great out there. I'll certainly be rooting for him to stay healthy. I know the Dodgers are banking on him staying healthy by bringing him back for another year. And I just want to finish up with Kenta Maeda quick. When he signed with the Dodgers, it was kind of like a Masahiro Tanaka signing. It was that offseason, Kenta Maeda was the number 1 import pitcher, and the Dodgers, just like any time these guys come over, had to outbid everyone for him, so they vastly overpaid him. Now with Maeda, he's been back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen so many times in the past couple of years, it'll make your head spin. I'm hoping with the amount of money they're paying him that he can at least be their 5th starter this year. I know they're hoping that. The only problem with Maeda is when they do send him to the bullpen, it's in the lowest leverage scenario possible. So, I mean, he's basically useless from a fantasy perspective because he's basically their long man.
Yeah.
And then just to finish up on the rotation, you got a guy, Julio Urias, who, again, all the talent in the world, but just hasn't been able to stay healthy. They're, believe it or not, still talking about an innings limit for this kid, which is crazy. I mean, feels like when he has pitched, he's had an innings limit for about 5 years now. So that'll be a story to monitor.
Yeah. Stripling, Bueller, and Urias all have options left. So, something we saw a lot of the Dodgers last year and something to look out for, especially when Kershaw comes back. Just a lot of guys going up and down from the minors. DL abuse, for lack of a better term. So looking at that, we're going to move on from the Dodgers. We've been going on a while here, but let's everybody not forget about the most important player in the Dodgers organization, Josh Tolley, 3rd string catcher, who's really quite something.
Was he R.A. Dickey's personal catcher in Toronto?
He and the Mets. He got included in the deal with Dickey for Syndergaard. And was basically just a personal catcher to a knuckleballer. That's right. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember at the beginning they were like, "Oh no, he's not going to be a personal catcher. We're going to get Martin to catch him." And in that first game, because at the time we thought R.A. Dickey was an ace, in that first game, Martin was catching Dickey and just had no idea where the baseball was going. It was incredibly amusing to watch.
And speaking of Russell Martin, he's back where he started with the Dodgers.
Yeah, he's the backup there. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. It
sounded like he might get a little bit of third base time.
Maybe, but I don't know. Why are you gonna sit Justin Turner for him? That seems crazy.
Well, yeah, I like I said earlier, I think Turner's going to get his fair share of time off, but then maybe Max Muncy slides over to the hot corner and not Martin.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the San Diego Padres. 2 years in a row now, they've made the big splash on free agents, picking up Eric Hosmer and then Manny Machado. I got to tell you, like, there's a lot of potential here until you look at the pitching staff. And then, and then it gets real dicey really fast, right?
Yeah. The only thing that might be worse than this starting pitching staff is this bullpen. But it's not the bullpen that worries me. It's their starting pitchers. I think there's a reason that the Corey Kluber rumors refuse to die. There's still a lot of talk between the Indians and Padres maybe making a deal. Maybe it's even Carrasco. Maybe it's not Kluber. But I think that's the reason the Kluber rumors won't go away, is because look at this starting rotation on paper. I mean, every move they've made with their bats tells me they want to compete. And then yet you look at this rotation and it's just absolutely pitiful. I mean, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's true. Like, this is not a team that's going to compete given their pitching staff. Joey Lucchesi had a lot. I would say a lot of potential. I don't know if that's the right word to use. It seemed like he was really gonna break out last year. From a fantasy perspective, he was okay. Do you have any thoughts on Lucchesi?
I mean, he's pitching in the right ballpark. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing all these guys in this rotation have going for them is Petco Park is probably the most cavernous ballpark in the majors. But really the only guy that gets me semi-excited in this rotation is a guy who's still coming back from Tommy John, and that's Dinelson Lamet. When he was healthy, boy, he was fun to watch. Real fireballer, but I think his Tommy John was a pretty late one last year, so I'm not sure how many innings he gets this year. But I mean, to answer your question, a guy like Lucchesi, he doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm surprised that people think he's really going to be able to do a lot here. It's very interesting to me.
I mean, for the amount of money that they've invested into their infield, it's shocking.
Yeah,
that they haven't made any moves to the starting rotation.
Yeah. Garrett Richards, a guy they signed, and just not going to pitch. Like, it's unfortunate. Garrett Richards, everyone's been waiting for it to happen, and it's just not.
I mean, it did happen at times with the Angels.
Sure, he pitched 200 innings in 2015, but that's as
probably
good as he got.
Probably the most mismanaged injury situation, maybe in the 2000s out of the four major sports. I mean, it was criminal the way the Angels treated him.
Yeah, hasn't been healthy since 2016. Really unfortunate.
Well, no, I mean they let him pitch with a partially torn UCL.
Yeah.
Which everybody knew was going to eventually require Tommy John, and then they wait for his Tommy John to happen right before he hits the open market. I mean, what a favor they did to him.
Yeah, the fact that the Padres were able to give him $15 million is actually even a bit of a thing,
I'll certainly be rooting for the guy, because if the guy can get healthy,
you'd love to see that, right?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, he's got to be their number one or number two starter. How sad's that?
Yeah. Logan Allen is a pretty highly ranked prospect, starting pitcher for them. I'm not qualified to talk about these things, but like. Maybe there might be some pieces, because it sounds like by all accounts, the Padres are just an absolute glutton of prospects waiting to be called up at this point.
Yeah.
You know,
they've without a doubt have the number one minor league system in the majors right now.
Yeah.
Led by, you could argue, top prospect in the sport, even above Vlad Jr., one Fernando Tatis Jr., which is pretty funny considering both their fathers played in the majors like semi-recently.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I say the same thing about him and Vlad, of that, like, can we just, like, stop getting too excited about prospects, because there is no such thing as a can't miss prospect.
Especially not in baseball.
In baseball, yeah. I think they actually maybe exist to a certain extent in football. Like that. Even if you think the guys can't miss, if you badly miss, he still ends up being a starter. But like in baseball,
you're talking quarterbacks, are you?
No, I'm talking like just to a certain extent quarterbacks, but like even defensive players and stuff, right? Like there's a certain level of like if you just have raw physical ability and a marginally decent head on your shoulders, people might think you're going to end up being a superstar, but you still end up being a starter, right? There's a million stories in baseball of guys who we think are going to be the best player we've seen in a generation and just end up like not in baseball 6 years later,
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have to go any further than the first team we discussed, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Their setup guy right now, Archie Bradley.
Yeah.
If you would have bought all the hype a couple years ago, he was supposed to be the next coming of Kershaw himself.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He's barely carving out a setup role right now for what could be one of the worst teams in the sport. Yeah. So you don't need to go too far for that example.
Yeah. I'll let you bring up any additional points you have on the Padres, but I think we both agree probably a good team, but not this year.
Yeah. I mean, my prediction that I made after the Machado signing still stands. I think Machado is here for 1.5. I think it's 1.5 to 2 seasons before he becomes a clubhouse cancer. And then I think it's probably about 3 seasons before they're forced to move him because he's been such a clubhouse downer. I mean, when the losing starts to pile up, and it's like you said after they signed him, he's now the face of that franchise. He now has to answer all the questions from the media. We'll see how that goes. I don't expect it to go very well. I fully expect Manny Machado to be on a different team 2 to 3 years from now.
Yeah.
I will say they've got some former top prospects in the outfield in Manuel Go and Hunter Renfroe. I think Renfroe in particular is up against the clock here. He's got to prove that he can do something more than hit the odd home run and strike out 20 times a game. I could see them moving Renfroe for pennies on the dollar later on in the season once they realize that he's not a starting outfielder in the majors.
Yeah, still relatively young at 27, but I agree with you. He's been in the league a year and a half. It's time to get going.
I mean, he barely can hit for the Mendoza line, and that's a major problem.
Yeah, and I personally I would say the bigger problem is the OBP, right?
So the bigger problem is what?
The OBP. Like if you're hitting 220 but you're walking 20% of the time, then fine. His walk rates are 5.6, 6.8. Yep. Like you got to do something, bud.
They talk about the 3 outcome player. Well, Renfroe's a 2 outcome player, and the good outcome doesn't happen nearly enough.
Yeah,
he's either striking out or he's hitting a home run, and maybe, again, it's the cavernous confines of Petco Park, but he doesn't hit nearly as many homers for a power guy that he should be.
Yeah, I mean, 26 home runs in the 2 seasons that he's been up are good numbers. Let's face it, half the games San Diego plays aren't at home.
Yep.
But there's also, another 10 or 9 that they play in Arizona, too. So
Colorado.
Yeah. I mean, Colorado definitely helps, for sure. But it's if you've got 26 home runs, those aren't elite numbers. You can't walk 6% of the time and get off with 26 home runs. Are you kidding me?
No. like I said, his days are numbered. Firmly believe his days are numbered. At least with their center fielder Manny Margot, at least he has 5-tool qualities plus defender, threat on the base pass, can actually hit for average sometimes. So at least there's that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to wonder how long Ian Kinsley is going to be a San Diego Padre, mainly because, like I said, they've got Tatis Jr. coming up. He's a future shortstop. And they've also got another top prospect in Luis Urias, who's going to be their long-term second baseman. So once this Padres team is scuffling like I fully expect them to be near the deadline, you got to wonder if Ian Kinsler's the first man out the door.
Yeah, 1-year deal definitely strikes me as somebody brought on just to get rid of later.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up. This one shouldn't actually take too long. San Francisco Giants, not a lot to talk about here.
No. Except for what guys are going to be on the way out.
Yeah, which is in its own way kind of unfortunate, right?
It is. But this infield in particular is just rippled with potential deadline deals.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at a guy like Brandon Crawford, Evan Longoria, Joe Panic. I'll tell you, Joe Panic and Brandon Crawford are by far the most overpaid middle infield in the sport. And the Giants are getting nothing out of. I mean, they're not going to win with them.
Yeah.
So the Giants are in a bad spot. I'm not sure they can even find anyone to take on those 2 contracts. And again, Evan Longoria, how long does that facade continue? I mean, what's the point of having Evan Longoria on your team if you're going to be the Giants and you're going to lose this year? What's the point?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure they can find anyone to take that contract. So really, if they can't find anyone to take on the bad contracts of Crawford, Longoria, and Panic, that pretty much just leaves them with Brandon Belt, who they can move.
Yeah, I would anticipate Belt getting moved. He's definitely got some I don't know, value, for lack of a better term.
Oh my God, yeah, definitely a valuable player for a team going places, but just not the Giants in 2019.
Go ahead, sir.
Just on that thought train, I mean, what's the future for Buster Posey in San Francisco? I mean, by the time this roster is ready to actually compete again, surely Posey's going to be, just hanging on. So, I mean, are they going to move him? Is there any point in keeping him around?
Yeah, Posey's interesting because I kind of think of that guy as being like face of the franchise sort of deal, and I don't.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I don't know how eager either side would be to move on. It's one of those situations where it's actually kind of fortunate that Posey has got his ring already, so.
3.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you don't have a situation where Posey's like, oh, can you pull in the Ray Borg?
I need a win.
Bring me some.
Yeah, Ray Borg. Yeah, that's a good one, Ray Borg.
Yeah.
Good.
Raymond Borg.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I've always had a lot of time for Brandon Crawford. In that I like really. I don't want to say productive. Productive is not the right word. Efficient defensive shortstops. I think there's actually a lot of value there in a lot of cases.
Just not to a Giants team that's going to be dead last in their division in 2019.
Yeah, and frankly, he's aging, And
yeah, well, that's just it. Right?
You can't play shortstop at 33. Like that's almost where I'm at in the world. Where like if you're 33 years old, you don't get to play shortstop anymore. And this is a guy who's 32 and a bit now. So he definitely might need to think about what's going to happen. The Giants, if I had to classify this team for this year, I would say this is a team that's paying the mortgage. They had those 3 rings. They spent some money doing it. And now they ended up with these contracts, and this is what your life's going to look like for a little while.
They made the bed, and now they have to lay in it.
Yeah, absolutely. For the Canadian Blue Jays fans listening, this is where Solarte ended up. Fun story that I just realized yesterday as I was like, I don't know about you, but when I put on a hoodie or another shirt, I like to have a shirt underneath. I'm a 2-shirt guy.
Yeah, of course.
And so I was like looking for a T-shirt in my T-shirt drawer, and I realized I have two Solarte T-shirts because.
But jersey T-shirts, right?
No, just like T-shirts of Solarte, because it was supposed to be Roberto Osuna T-shirt day, and I had tickets to that game, and then he hit a woman because he's a piece of shit.
Threw her down the flight of stairs.
Yeah, and so it became Solarte T-shirt day. So now I have
some damage control.
Yeah, so now I have two Solarte T-shirts sitting in my dresser being worn under hoodies. Yeah,
smooth PR move.
Yeah. Listen, I think their starting rotation is okay.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a blast from the past group, you know.
Well, especially when you consider Pudge Rodriguez's son is part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with the way he pitched last year. It seemed like it was nothing but quality starts. Derek Rodriguez, Pudge's son. If you want to Google image his picture right now, he definitely looks like his father, only not a bloated steroid face. You have to wonder, a guy like Bumgarner, we talked about earlier, it's kind of the same deal as Posey. Faced the franchise, but we kind of got to move him, right?
Yeah, you would think. Bumgarner's a little different in my mind. 29 and a bit. Posey's 32.
But Bumgarner, I mean, he's approaching Kershaw territory here. Ticks coming off the velocity. Yeah. Too many innings pitched.
Yeah.
Needs to stay away from the dirt bike.
Yeah, and that's very funny. Part of what you look at with Bumgarner, you're right. He's at a little over 1,600 innings, but some of those innings were, what do you call them? Nathan Eovaldi innings, like that. Where like you're being left in. They're the kind of innings that can take time off your career when you are coming in playoff games on 2-3 days rest and throwing way too many pitches, coming in from the bullpen.
Yep. The team needs a win and they don't care about your...
Yeah, and in fairness, and good on these guys, because, when Bumgarner was doing that stuff...
3 rings.
3 rings, and everybody knew what he was doing. It's not like one of these guys doing this in the 70s when, nobody really knew the science behind any of this or what the result was going to be. Bumgarner knew, I'm going to do this shit, and it's going to shorten my career, but I'm going to get 3 rings. So, it's a hard time to kind of argue with that because, as I always like to say, flags fly forever. So
yeah, and he's a country boy. He doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah. With that said, dude got paid too, right? Yeah. So it's, we're talking about a guy who, you know what? Nope, I am wrong. I am very wrong about that. I misread what was on Fangraphs. I thought he was making $35 a year. No, he got a 5-year, $35 million contract. He did not get paid. Holy shit. Wow.
I thought somewhere along the line he got $100 million extension.
No, it looks like no. This is the last year on his deal. He'll be a free agent after this. Wow. I'm actually really caught off guard right now. I thought the Giants kind of did good by him and just gave him a paycheck because of what he did.
Sounds like they gave his money to Brandon Crawford.
I know. Yeah, that's not great. That is not great. And Posey got paid, but
yeah. And Samardzija's making big coin.
I don't think he's making that much. Is he?
I think it would surprise you how much he's making.
Okay. Now I just have to figure out his name.
And Samardzija's been paid at a couple stops. Interesting case. You have to wonder. The guy was on his way to being a first-round wide receiver coming out of Notre Dame. Now, obviously, he would have had a much shorter career in the NFL than he would throwing baseballs and not getting hit. But you still have to wonder, where would he have ended up in the draft? What maybe his NFL career would have looked like.
I hear what you're saying. In the NFL, you don't get a lot of 5-year, $90 million contracts at any position.
Well, no, I mean, he wouldn't have made anywhere near the amount of money, and he'd probably be on the fast track to CT.
Yeah. It's actually really sorry to interrupt. It's actually really interesting to see guys like Kyler Murray opt for the NFL. Because
I think it's different at quarterback, right?
I mean, a little bit, but given the injury concerns and just the straight up money you can make in baseball, the
earning potential.
It's because opting for the NFL in that way is that's a move for fame. That is not a move for financial prosperity, for sure. Or even physical health.
I think, though, when you're reigning Heisman back who is expected to go number 1 overall, I think that's what changes things.
Yeah.
As we see with quarterbacks now, it doesn't matter who you are, Matt Stafford, doesn't matter what your name is, playoff games you've won, again, Matt Stafford. If you're the next starting quarterback who is up to be paid, you will then re-break the record, basically.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you, Russell Wilson. I know you know what's coming for you. But yeah, so I think that's the reason Kyler Murray is doing this. I think if he was going to be a second-round pick and was going to have to start his NFL career as a backup, I think he'd be going the baseball route, no doubt.
I think that's fair. Look, even when he made the decision, I think there was rumblings of him getting into the first round, but this theory that he's going to be the number 1 pick has everything to do with Arizona hiring his head coach.
It does.
Because I don't think otherwise anybody would have thought he would have been first overall in this draft.
Yeah, any other coach showing up in Arizona would be giving Josh Rosen a year too. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. In fact, there's a lot of scouts that firmly believe if Josh Rosen was in this QB class, he'd be the first quarterback taken. So it's a really interesting situation. And the winner, mark my word, the winner of this whole situation is either going to be a team like the Miami Dolphins or the Washington Redskins, who are going to get Josh Rosen for pennies on the dollar, second round pick.
Yeah, you're a bit of a Josh Rosen lover, but okay, we've moved away from baseball. Let's bring it back. NL West, we never actually did predictions on standings.
Well,
so...
I just wanted to finish up on this Giants rotation. I'll tell you, if you're looking for a sleeper in the late round, even if it's an eight-man team, 10-team league, 12-team leagues. I was able to get Drew Pomerantz in a 20-team league very, very late. So, again, if you're in an 8 or a 10 or a 12, or there's a chance you might even be able to get him off free agents. But I one of the sleepers, especially for fantasy pitchers this year, I think is Drew Pomerantz. Again, the caveat is he healthy? It appears he is. It appears his shoulder injuries were left in Boston. I think Boston, near the end of last year, with what Eovaldi was churning out, with the luxury they had at the depth of starting pitching, that Pomerantz was kind of the odd man out. He's kind of forgotten. I think it was a really nice buy low by the Giants to bring Pomerantz on. I fully expect him to have a good year. And the last one I wanted to bring up, and it's really
Can I just react to Pomerantz for a second?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Cannot co-sign.
Cannot
co-sign. I cannot get on board with that.
Because of health.
Health is definitely part of the conversation. This is the kind of guy who maxed out at 173 innings pitched. 2016, 2017 were his highs in innings pitched at 170 and 173. Aside from that, his next highest was 96.2. So this is a guy in Tulowitzki territory, frankly.
The last time he pitched in this division, it was with the Padres before that Red Sox trade, and he was pitching lights out. He was pitching at an all-star level. I expect, as long as he's healthy, returning to this division. I think he's going to be good.
I strongly disagree.
We'll reevaluate it at the All-Star break.
Sure, he had a short good run with the Padres. I think that's fair. But are you sure it's the Padres and not the Rockies? Oh no, it is the Padres. But like, I don't know the xFIP, so fielding, the what expected fielding independent pitching. Even last year it was like a 4.15. Sorry, last year was 5.31. The year before was 4.15, which was actually like his best year. So
he's basically been hurt for the past 2 years.
I guess, but he's basically been hurt for every other year than 2016 in that case.
The thing is, though, is, I mean, if you're the Giants, like, it's so win-win here. Like, low risk, high reward, right? I mean, he doesn't work out, you DFA him, right? Yeah, it's a 1-year deal. You're not losing. But if he can summon the Drew Pomerantz of old, then you're laughing. It's just so, like,
I guess.
It's the same thing in NFL free agency. Like today, Justin Houston to the Colts. I mean, no risk. I don't see any risk there. I mean, for the Giants to bring on Pomeranz, man, and if he pitches the way I think he's going to pitch, then they'll likely move him at the deadline for prospects, and they'll be laughing.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say here is because I don't want to go in too many circles about Drew Pomeranz. You're right. We'll see what happens, and I agree with you from the perspective of if you're the Giants, there's no harm in signing this guy. There's like no downside. I get that, but from your fantasy perspective, I mean, I don't think you draft the guy unless you're in like a 20-team league that you're talking about. But yeah, even if you use a late round pick or use him as a streaming starter or pick him up off free agency, I mean, at best, I think you stream him for a bit. And this is a guy where, like, if somebody has the balls to hold on to him and it ends up working out, then cool. But I think even if I pick him up off free agency and then he has like a okay start, let's say he goes 6 innings, let's say like just a straight up quality start, 6 innings, 3 runs, doesn't get the win, but like I don't really care about that, to be honest.
He's usually a high strikeout guy when he's pitching,
and that's the thing. Let's say he gets like 7 strikeouts in 6 innings, right? Like, and I don't know that I'm holding him for next week. I probably still throw him back in the pool so that I get a starter
stream
next
him.
Day. Yeah, but I think he's a high end streamer. I think that's the right approach for Pomeranz.
And I think the Giants will be elated with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the Beach Boys song? Barbara Ann, pom 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 Pomerantz.
That's right.
Pomerantz, take my. Anyway, just to finish up with the Giants, really the pink elephant in the room is how much money they still own Johnny Cueto.
Oh my God! Yeah, who's going to be on the IR all year?
Yeah, I mean he's recovering from Tommy John, and I believe it pretty late Tommy John last summer, so I don't think he's going to be pitching this season. There was some scuttlebutt earlier in the offseason that the Yankees and the Giants were discussing a swap of bad contracts, Jacoby Ellsbury for Johnny Cueto. As a Yankees fan, I would have loved that because when Cueto does come back, I expect him to pitch well. The only problem is, again, the Giants are going nowhere fast and they owe a ton of money to a guy who's not going to pitch for a year. So what do you do there, right?
Yeah.
I guess you just got to swallow it if you're the Giants.
Yeah. Okay, give me your NL West prediction as far as who you have winning the division.
Dodgers by a mile.
Interesting. I gotta tell you, I kind of like the Rockies.
I have the Rockies at second, but I think the Dodgers are
okay.
A much better team than anyone in this division.
Yeah, I get that. That is the chalk pick, and that's the chalk pick for a reason. So I'm not
Nick Chalk Smart.
Exactly.
Have you seen my March Madness tourney bracket?
I haven't looked at the other guys, but I did see Mark mention earlier that we all have Duke except for Dirt. So I thought that was pretty funny. I have Duke every year. I don't know if anyone's ever caught that about me, but I'm a Duke guy, and every bracket I fill out always has Duke winning because I believe in Coach K.
I might as well have written chalk at the top of my bracket. But you know what? I went pretty chalk last season, and I won my group, so I was happy about that.
Yeah, chalk's been good for quite a while now, actually, in a lot of cases. If we're just going to talk March Madness for 1 second, I'm going to whine and bitch about Yale. I picked Yale to beat LSU. I have a soft spot for the Ivy League teams. That was the problem with picking 3-point shooting teams today. This was the team that hit like 37, I think they said 37% of their threes all year, and then came out today and dropped to 25% and lost by 4. So, shit. But I did get Murray State, so we'll see how any of that goes.
Didn't Ryan Fitzpatrick play basketball? Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm not sure Yale's an Ivy League school. Who knows?
But yeah, back to the NLS quickly. Who do you have finishing? So you have Rockies Dodgers?
Yeah, I think I have Rockies Dodgers, and then honestly, those last 3.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty interchangeable of just rotten baseball.
I think you probably end up with the Padres in 3rd, realistically.
That was the toughest decision for me was, am I going Padres 3 or 4? I'll tell you I'm going Dodgers, Rockies, D-backs.
Oh, okay.
Just because I think that rotation is going to carry them for a bit.
The rotation with the humidor is pretty good,
Yeah, and I think also too it has a lot to do with how low I think of the Padres. So yeah, I'm going to go Padres Giants to finish out that division. I'm really not buying the Padres being any good. Think back to when they added Kimbrel and Kemp and Will Myers, and then they didn't do shit, and then they sold within like 6 months after giving up on that. And I know they have Hosmer now, and I know they have Machado, but I mean, we talked about their rotation. The Padres are not going anywhere in the next couple of years.
Yeah. We'll see.
Maybe Fernando Tatis lights the world on fire, right? I mean, if every Blue Jays conversation is going to center around when does Vlad Jr. come up, every Padres conversation is going to center around that.
In fairness, there's no Blue Jays conversation that involves them making the playoffs.
No, certainly not. But every Blue Jays conversation at some point, it's like, okay, well, when's Vlad Jr. coming? What kind of ruse is the front office going to play this year? What kind of facade is going to go on?
Yeah.
Because I'm sick of it. I talked about it before, and you said, well, it has to do with the money. Something needs to change. These guys are MLB ready. You're doing the fans a disservice. It's watering down the product by not having the best players playing for the top team. I'm sick of it.
Smart, before we go, we're going super long, so try to keep it relatively short. Give us your thoughts on Justin Houston.
Sorry, on who?
Did I say his name wrong? Justin Houston? Colts.
Sorry, you keep cutting out there. Sorry, who?
Oh, sorry about that. Justin Houston, Colts, defensive end.
Oh yeah, Justin Houston, outside linebacker, edge rusher. Yeah, man. I was ready to come on here and just start pounding my fist about how NFL GMs should be pounding their fist on the table to sign Justin Houston. I'm surprised it went as long as it did. I absolutely love the fit in Indianapolis. I think he's their best pass rusher since Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis were in their prime rushing for the Peyton Manning-led Colts. I love the addition. I thought he would have been a good fit with the Jets, with the Ravens, multiple places. I think the Colts are laughing. I think Justin Houston is still an elite edge rusher in this league, period.
All right. As always, everyone, thank you for listening. We will see you. Oh, wait, I didn't do my parting shot. I have a very quick parting shot. Sorry, I got a little drunk during this pod. I have a very quick parting shot, not sports related, but and politics related, which scares people. But not falling on any side of this. I just think it's a very funny thing that most Canadians don't realize happened today. If I were to make a long story short, the Conservatives are upset with the Liberals over the SNC thing, and they forced, more than 24 hours of votes on budget items in protest, basically. Now, every budget vote is automatically a matter of confidence, which means if the Liberals lose any of those votes, the government falls and we go to an election, which is all to say that most Canadians don't realize we were within a Liberal member of Parliament lying away from going to an election within 30 days. Because there was a point where the Conservatives accused the Liberals of not having the correct number of members in the House for the vote. The Speaker said, he's not here to count people, so he will just leave it up to their honor. I am pretty sure at least a couple Liberal members lied to say that they were there when they were not there. But we were within the honor system of all having to go cast votes in 30 days because the Liberals couldn't keep enough people in the House, and I think that's hilarious. With that said, thank you as always for listening. My name's Charles. On behalf of the always clairvoyant Nick Smart, thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week where I come back with just all the love for Eric Thames that anyone can handle. All right, see you. All right.
As it stands now, I don't even think he has a starting job in one.
Thames, no. It's the roster thing is saying he's on the bench.
I think
they think Aguilar's got the first base job.
As he should, with the way he hit in the playoffs. He absolutely should have it. I forget if it was the Braves or the Indians that gave up on him too quick, but it was one of them for sure.
Yeah.
Thames is going to have to hit to get in the lineup.
Yeah, and he kind of fell off towards the back end of last year. Yeah, I don't know. Some of these guys that San Diego has, specifically, Ryan Braun, like, I don't
Milwaukee,
know how long. So, yeah, Milwaukee. Like, how long are they going to let Braun keep running it out there?
That's just it. I think he's tentatively slated to play first base, believe it or not.
Wait, so what's Aguilar playing then?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, Aguilar's going to be first. But I think I certainly didn't dream that Braun was getting reps at first base.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the hell they're going to. But it's right. Like, I mean, how much longer can Braun? But I mean, as long as the Brewers are winning, I guess there's a place for him.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I'm going to try to actually